there, welcome back to our next lesson in the 21-day family reset. And this one is a big one, it's an important one, and we're going to just touch on some of the important points of it because we could spend hours diving into the depths. But today's topic is sugar, and of course that's a big one. I'm sure you're aware of, because sugar is in everything these days, right? Sugar is in sauces, salad dressings, processed foods of all types. Added sugar is sort of like the sprinkle on top of everything of the food industry these days. And we are getting so much of it that is really can be seen as the root cause nutritionally of so many of the problems in dietary situations that we have that are running rampant in our adults and in our kids. So things like obesity, things like type 2 diabetes, things like cancers, things like heart disease, all of these types of things, things like dementia and Alzheimer's as well, behavior issues, ADHD and attention problems, all kinds of brain issues. These are all caused by, or at least exacerbated by, the overwhelming abundance of sugar that we are eating in our modern day living. So for example, somewhere around here, oh, that's not the one. This slide tells us that in 1815, sugar consumption was 15 pounds per person per year. And today, it's 135 pounds per person per year. So we see that's almost a tenfold increase. And we know that it's the cause of obesity and things like diabetes. But what we also are finding out and learning is that it's the cause of things like Alzheimer's and heart disease. And if you've been aware of the news over the last year or so that's sort of filtering its way through, it turns out that a lot of the sort of landmark research that had been done in the 70s and 80s, it was being used to propagate the idea of the low-fat diet being the healthiest for your heart, actually was falsified data. And what was really found in those studies was that sugar was the culprit. But at the time, the sugar industry, the agricultural industry in terms of like corn and sugar beets and just sugar cane, was so much more powerful economically and politically than the animal fat industry. And they lobbied and paid people off, frankly, to get that data suppressed and put the blame on saturated fat, which now we know doesn't cause heart disease. But what we do know is, even from that data back then, that an increase in sugar certainly causes heart disease, as well as a lot of the other problems that we're seeing that we already mentioned. So, I mentioned Alzheimer's as well and dementia. And what is true is that Alzheimer's researchers often refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes, because for anyone that's pre-diabetic or has full-blown type 2 diabetes, their likelihood or incidence of getting Alzheimer's is increased by 600%. So I'm telling all these bits of data and factual information and numbers because I think it's so vital to really understand the impact that sugar has had, because now it's so ubiquitous. It's so much in everything, a little bit here, a little bit there, that we are getting exposed to so much more than we ever have in history. And it's no wonder that we're seeing such a rise in all of these things, including in our kids. So, type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. They don't call it that anymore because we're seeing it so much in kids. We can't call something that we see in kids now adult onset, right? That makes no sense anymore. And obesity is such a prevalent thing. I mean, just go to any elementary school and use your eyes to observe how many kids that are overweight and obese now, just from one generation ago. Like when I was a kid, I remember maybe one or two kids in my class that were overweight, but now it's sort of flipped, and so many of the kids are overweight. And dealing with the struggles that come with that obesity and those problems, and then being set up for a lifetime of issues into early adulthood that even in my generation we're not seeing till later in adulthood, like heart disease, like cancers, like difficulties with our brains and so forth. So it's important to understand the impact of sugar on your family, on your kids, and on their health. And it's also important to understand why it's a big challenge too. There was a study they've done with rats in a lab where to basically understand how addictive to our brains sugar really is, because it's quite addictive. And so they took these rats and they got them addicted to cocaine. And they did that by putting cocaine in their water and then having them drink it, over many days until, they were chemically addicted to cocaine. And then what they did is they put that same water in their cage, like always, but then they put a different water bottle in the cage with sugar water in it. And they observed what happened. And within a very short period of time, the vast majority of the rats were ignoring the cocaine water and fighting over access to the sugar water. And when they started studying the chemistry in the brain, biochemistry of this, they found the sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. That's 8 times more addictive. So it's a big issue because of sugar being in everything. If you are somebody, you as the parents are somebody who has eaten a standard American diet, or even a healthier but still full of sauces, soups, marinades, salad dressings, and so forth from processed foods, or eating what's considered even a healthy version of the standard American diet, in all possibility, in all likelihood, you've been eating enough sugar to be addicted to it. So it becomes difficult to have our kids become unaddicted to something we are still addicted to ourselves. And it's pervasive. And this is one of the most difficult things that I found as a parent with kids, is dealing with sugar, because it's in everything, and especially with our kids. If you think about holidays, special occasions, special events, they, to some degree or another, are built around a big dose of sugar. Birthday cake and ice cream. Halloween is candy. Even Thanksgiving, the desserts and pies, and Christmas, there's tons of sweets and cookies, and that's a huge part of the industry of that. Easter, with Easter candy, it's really everywhere, and all of these things, and that's by design. Certainly, several generations ago, you didn't see that pervasive nature of these sweets in all of these holidays to the same degree they are now, because it makes people a lot of money if you're buying a lot of sweets. And it's great if there's, for them, for their bottom line, for their pockets, if there's something that they can put in all their products that is highly addictive and that the vast majority of the population is addicted to. So it's really something to look at and to consider. And in my experience, in the many years I've been doing this, and I guess that's 13 years now, when I have this conversation with people of any age or type about sugar, the most common things I hear when I say, and I'll tell people even that if they want to lose weight, because that's a big issue with a lot of people, that the simplest way to do it, now I don't mean easiest, but I mean simplest way, is to stop eating sugar. Many people say things like, oh, I don't really eat that much sugar. And I think, what does that mean, right? I don't really eat that much sugar in relationship to what? Compared to who? Compared to what? Where are they getting this comparison from? Because unless you really sit down and journal and record every exposure that you have to sugar throughout each day, throughout a period of time, a week or a few weeks, how could you really know that? Because it's hidden in everything. It's such a normalized part of our culture. It's in drinks. It's in everything that I have people tell me that, and they walked into the office and threw away in our garbage can a 20-ounce sweetened coffee drink from Starbucks, or go out to their car and pop open a bottle of soda, and it's like that is such a tremendous sugar exposure that I just don't know what the comparison is. So I think the first step really is getting really real and honest with ourselves. And that's really where our homework's going to be in this episode, or from this lesson. That is, take the time, put pen to paper, and start recording you and your eating habits first and foremost. And do that for at least 5 days. Write down everything you eat and everything you drink. And try to just have it be a normal, exposure to foods and so forth. don't try to, make it like, oh, I'm doing this for 5 days, so I better not drink my sodas, or, better get black coffee at Starbucks instead of a, triple frappuccino, or whatever the case may be. Start recording it and understand that you're part of what you're doing is giving yourself the experience of really understanding and knowing how much sugar you're really exposing yourself to. And then once you've done that, if you, especially for those of you who have young enough kids that you basically are in charge of everything they eat, do the same with them. Record everything they eat for a period of at least 5 days and start looking at the sugar exposure there. And once we've done that, once we've sort of opened the door and shined the light on the reality of the situation, then we can actually start making changes. And so at that point, what we want to look to do is, where can we start making these changes? Where can we start replacing things that are high sugar items with lesser or no sugar items, so that people don't feel necessarily deprived, but we start making these switches. And one other tip I'm going to throw in there, once you've done this exercise, once you've exposed the reality of the situation and are looking to start making that change, I did a Kids Eating Broccoli podcast interview recently with a chiropractor, nutrition expert, and psychologist, Dr. Ben Lerner. And what he talks about with his own kids that they do in their household is they have a special day of the week, essentially, or really 2 days of the week, that are like the days that the kids get to eat sweets. Because he has kids that are in the 10, 12, 13 kind of age range. And Fridays and Saturdays are the days for the sweet treats. And Fridays has got to be a healthier version. So, he talks a lot about, and we talk a lot about here, diet switches, so some taking food that's really typically been a high sugar item and making a recipe that's a much lower sugar option with natural things has a much healthier, profile. So that would be a Friday. And then Saturday, they're allowed to have their one sort of junk food sweet treat of the week. And, there's parameters around that, whatnot. But the important part is that because they have that and they know it's coming on a regular basis, it really helps to nip in the bud a lot of the fighting, a lot of the feeling of deprivation, and a lot of the struggle that we can have with our kids with sweets, because they see it and they're exposed to it everywhere. If they know that there's this time that they're going to be able to have access to that, that's going to be their time that they get to do it, it really helps alleviate a lot of that, that fighting, that struggle, and the headache that can come with that for parents. So that's another thing we can look to institute going forward. But the homework now is to really start recording, observing, and understanding and realizing and shining the light on the amount of sugar exposure, because we have to really break open that idea of that we don't really eat that much sugar, and really understand where it's all coming from. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about, reading labels. Start reading labels and looking at that sugar content. That's one of those easy ones, because it says it right there in those nutrition facts where there's the percentages in grams. And you can start recording your grams of sugar and really understand and see how much sugar you're getting. Okay, you guys take care. Do that homework, write it down, really start today. Start with your very next time you eat, and get going, because this one change can make a huge difference. I mentioned that I tell people that's the simplest way to lose weight. Absolutely true. Every time somebody really puts their mind to it and actually starts doing this, they lose weight if they have weight to lose. Not as huge of a thing with all of our kids, though some kids struggle with that. But attention, behavior, vitality, clear thinking, these are the kind of changes we start to see pretty immediately when we start making these changes. All right, you guys take care, and we'll see you on the next lesson.